the comments from Mahomes. I don't know if it's because it's May 25th or we just know that Burrow and Herbert are coming to make him the ninth best paid, if you will, annual quarterback in the NFL. Making $40 million a year is nothing to sneeze at. But what he is the best in the sport, and I don't think there's any argument on that front right now. What did you make of his comments and the reaction to it in our NFL media world, Albert?
I think there's two sides to it. It's there's a rising ship lifts all boats, right? And there is some level of responsibility players have to each other to do the best they can individually to kind of help every other player and make conditions better for those around you. But then there's the flip side of that, which is trying to do something for your teammates, and recognizing that, it is to some degree a zero-sum game that all these teams are playing, and when you pay your quarterback, it necessarily becomes more difficult to put the best team around that quarterback. I mean, that's why we've talked for a decade now about what an advantage it is to have a quarterback on a rookie contract, right? Because that allows for you to add maybe 4 or 5 players that are really good players on your team that maybe otherwise you wouldn't be able to have. So I think that's sort of where it's at. And, I think Patrick Mahomes did that deal, and I can tell you this factually, with the idea in mind that he wanted to create cost certainty for the team going forward, not so much that they would get a discount on him, but just so they could plan. And so when they're doing Travis Kelce's contract or they're redoing Chris Jones's contract, they know exactly what they're dealing with at the most expensive position, and that allows them to fit in everybody around them. So, it'll be interesting to see because I do think, there's that model out there of how Tom Brady consistently did, I would at least call them reasonable deals with the Patriots. Now, there were some fringe benefits around that, but he did relatively reasonable deals with the Patriots all along, which gave the Patriots an edge in how they put together their team. Is Mahomes willing to do that? Can they do that without it being awkward? Because, with the Patriots and Brady, it did get a little awkward at the end when it came to the contracts. I think these are all open questions now because I think Mahomes has what, and I don't have it in front of me, I think it's 9 years left on the deal that he did, right?
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, if you're Patrick, do you go in, do you want adjustment? If you're the Chiefs, do you feel compelled to do that? And if you're going to do that, what's the right number that you can agree to with the hope that maybe you won't have to adjust it again for another 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Right, and then the question is what would be the tipping point, right? I mean,
right,
and is it somebody whose other whose work Mahomes does not respect, who now makes as much, if not more than him, for multiple seasons?
That's always what it is, right, Rich?
Right.
Look, I know it. What? One thing that's interesting on the Brady thing is, I think one that kind of got under his skin a little bit was when Garoppolo started making more money than him, and rightfully so, right? So I think that is a factor. Go ahead with your question, but I think that is a factor not to be overlooked.
No, but and Brady is the only one would say barometer we can use to measure this pressure situation that might be building, unless it's no pressure at all, that Mahomes can just turn that part of his brain off and just keep staring at the trophies that he drunkenly leaves in the hands of hands on the parade route. You know what I mean? Like having the time of his life. That's the question here, and the only reason why we keep asking it in the media over and over again is because that might be one of the things that could derail what is obviously one of the best built machines we've seen in recent football memory. What's going on in Kansas City right now?
Right, and I think it's how much, I think part of this is, and the Chiefs have been smart about this. I will say that, I can tell you, it's funny because when we kind of went through this NBAization of the NFL a few years ago, when Brady got out of New England, and then when Rodgers started to make noise and Russell started to make noise, and
Devontae Adams is another one. Yeah,
right. When all of that started to happen, I remember talking to the Chiefs about it, and I was like, well, if I'm Clark Hunt, I'd be going out to lunch with Patrick Mahomes every month and just, hey, you all right, buddy? You need anything? You know what I mean? Like, and you know, the response I got was like, they're legitimately doing stuff like that, you know, like that they're very cognizant of, like, you know, of trying to keep him happy, almost to the point where, like, they do things for him, and there are some interesting things that they've done for him. There's one story, like, where they actually pissed off another player doing something, and Patrick didn't even ask for it. You know what I mean? But they did it for him. And, you know, I think Patrick had to go to the team and say, look, you don't need to do that for me, you know? But, like, there is that element of it where they don't want it to get to a point where he has to come to them asking for things, right? Like, they are smart enough, and I think the emotional intelligence of Andy Reid and Brett Veach and Clark Hunt comes in here, where it's like, we want to be smart enough that, like, we want to be able to troubleshoot anything that might be coming. And I think that that's sort of where the idea of redoing this contract, or at least adjusting it for inflation, like, that's, I think, coming more from the team side than the player side. And that's why you hear Patrick talking the way that he is. You know, and I think that's why this is a good partnership right now, you know, and will it be forever? I don't know. But I do think that's, you know, one way in which the Chiefs have been smart about approaching it.
I'm mandated to ask, what was the thing that the Chiefs did that the Mahomes didn't ask and might have ruffled some feathers? What was that?
Yeah, I mean, I just heard I had heard it had something to do with access when access was limited during COVID, where, like, you know, like a lot of the stuff that they could do for players' families and stuff was limited during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so they made some concessions for Patrick's family and friends that he didn't really ask for, that, like, they weren't making that they had to kind of cut back with other people,
Albert.
you know? And so it was sort of something along those lines. And look, like, I think, you know, a big part of it for the Chiefs was, we don't even want to go to him and ask. Like, we want to make him comfortable, you know, and we're going to do everything we can to make him comfortable. And I think to some degree, you know, for Mahomes, it's like, dude, you don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like keep my teammates happy too. But I think that there's that part of it, like, where, you know, you want to do everything you can to keep your best player happy. And, you know, in some cases that's going to mean keeping the other guys happy too. You know, in some cases that's going to mean making sure that Travis Kelce is happy and taken care of, making sure that Chris Jones is happy and taken care of, you know. And then, you know, when you're going the other way, the player like Tyreek Hill, being very communicative with your quarterback about that, which I can tell you they were when they offloaded Tyreek Hill. You know, when the idea first came up, the first call they made was to Mahomes himself.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.